Admiral, I've got a couple areas I want to cover generally before we wrap up. And these are ones that can be, I'd like you to kind of respond to us later, not at the hearing. I don't know what the mix should be for your mission in terms of manned versus unmanned aircraft. I think one of your biggest selling points is your personnel, folks sitting behind you and you sitting there in front. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But as we talk about making less do more, and I'm not suggesting what the answer is, but I think it's appropriate for us to have an idea of here's how that's being incorporated as we go forward, especially in this new time when we talk about reconciliation, fiscal year 26, that sort of stuff. So that it's one of those things that we've checked on. So I'm happy to talk with your folks offline about that. Not that it'll be a secret, but we want to know that everybody else is talking about the wonders of this and that in terms of as a force multiplier and those sorts of things. So that's one of the boxes I think we need to check. Shoreside infrastructure is always one of those things that's not sex and violence, but nonetheless, when we talk about doing the right thing in terms of cutters, in terms of regions, in terms of air operations and all that other sort of stuff, and it's not a blame thing, it's just a reality that shoreside infrastructure has not been the tip of the spear, if you will, for a long time. And that's, like I said, you've got your mission to do, you got to take care of your people, you got to take care of your equipment, you got all that stuff, but nonetheless, it probably is an appropriate time to go, okay, as we sit here to jump off in terms of potentially some historic funding in terms of reconciliation as well as going forward into the next fiscal year, that's one of the areas I think we need to be able to say in our work product when somebody goes, it's like, well, we've talked about that, and here's what our understanding is, and so that there's at least been a discussion and a consideration when the inevitable discussion comes on the floor for the Homeland Bill, that we can say with some factual basis, I know that's kind of novel these days in some quarters, but some factual basis, well, we've talked about that and here's where we're at. The Indo-Pacific is, God bless you. And by the way, shout out to your folks in District 11, who basically had the unenviable task of picking me up in Minden, Nevada in a C-27 out of the Sacramento base and getting me down to San Diego to look at everything you're doing as well as some of the other folks down there. Absolutely impressive organization of time and whatever. So if anybody wants to go to San Diego for a break, don't have these guys do it for you because we hit the ground running. There were demonstrations in terms of Customs Border Patrol stuff on the aircraft on the way down, right off onto the boats. And listen, for a guy from a state without a coastline, that's it's a little scary, you know, but I was in good hands and hats off to that command structure and those folks all the way through the organization. But as we look at that Indo-Pacific region, and you're talking about people swimming around the fence, boats turning over in surf, people, you know, rolling them up on the beach and running, and even some folks running through the yard of your commander down there. It's not a last post for retirement. I understand that. But as we talk about things a little farther offshore, obviously everybody focuses on the Customs Border Patrol mission, but we want to make sure that we've spent some time on. So what's going on the mundane stuff like fishing, stuff like that, which is also part of the mission. Lucky you folks. So we need to make sure that we've kind of hit that. And then I think the questions regarding migrant interdiction have been pretty good. The one thing I want to put on your folks' radar screen, though, is one of our sayings here is we won't surprise you and we don't want you to surprise us. So if you have an idea right now, I'd appreciate it. And maybe I shouldn't be nervous about it, but I'm nervous about that's great that all these assets are integrated with DOD and all these other agencies and blah, blah, blah. And when you talk about naval vessels, you know, in the Gulf or off the coast of San Diego, and I'm sure there's drone technology being whatever and all that. Do you expect to get billed by DOD or the individual services, Navy, Marines, you know, when you see vehicles running around, air assets, rotary wing, drone, whatever it is, do you expect to have any bills back to you from the Navy or whatever saying, hey, love supporting you, here's the bill?
Thank you, Chairman. With the respect to the 2 Navy ships that have been supporting us, we do not expect any request for reimbursement for the Navy for those operations. That's never been part of our discussion specific to those assets that are supporting us.
So my ongoing request of you during this hearing is, as soon as the canary starts to cough in that mine, and somebody goes, hey, by the way, I hope you folks are saving up because we're getting ready to send you a bill, we need to know about it soonest. Because based on the information we've got so far, we're not planning for any of that. And so, you know the old saying, it works in your mission as well as anybody's, forewarned is forearmed. So we're thinking there's no warning due at the moment. So if any of that starts to change, comms needs to kick into active gear.
I understand, Mr. Chairman. I'll work with the Department of Homeland Security and Department of Defense to make sure we tell you if that's changed.
Okay. Last thing is, and every federal organization that I'm aware of struggles with this, and I like what I've heard so far, but obviously you've got the right concern regarding, hey, we got to take care of our folks with all this stuff. So the challenge will be, and as the ranking member of the full committee indicated and the ranking member of this committee indicated, it's like we got to keep that balance in terms of how we taking care of our peeps with obviously with equipment and facilities, but also with what's going on with recruiting, which I understand has ticked up a lot, and that's good. But obviously, along with all the other multitasking, I'm glad to hear that that's part of the deal. We're trying to keep an eye on that, and we'll continue to. With that, I think I have missed Mr. Gonzalez. The floor is yours for 5 minutes for questions.
Thank you, Chairman, for holding this hearing, and thank you, Admiral, for being here. I mean, just to piggyback off the Chairman, this is the committee that wants to make sure